Oh, looks like we're going. All right. So, in human anatomy and physiology, you're going to have to do a project. Okay, this project can be found at the normal website that we have. And the purpose of it all is because we are going to have you gain an understanding. Basically, you can do any any project you want in the entire world. I'll give you some advice and some tips as we go along the way and how to be successful with that, because it is a really large project that you'll be graded on throughout and you'll be giving throughout the semester. All right, so how does it work? Basically, you pick a topic. It can be pretty much anything, like I've mentioned already. The more specific, the better the research. If you pick something general like shoulder surgery, you're gonna really kind of corner yourself with research and googling and things like that, because a ton of different broad things are going to show up. Okay. Um, that being said, instead of picking shoulder surgery, you could do a slap repair of the labrum, which is a ligament around the shoulder that you'll learn at some point throughout the semester. Anyway, the more specific, the better the research it's going to be. Anyway, so the actual research portion, you need at least 5 sources. Cite them however you want, APA or MLA. Usually science does APA. If you do MLA, I'm not going to go and come after you, but if you are thinking about going into something sciencey in the future, you might want to have some practice with APA. Highly recommend using college or university or government-based websites, because they're constantly updated, and they're the ones who are actually doing the research. Hopefully throughout your science career so far at Mounds View, you've been taught on how to evaluate websites and things like that, and resources. Be a critical thinker. Obviously, if it's like a blog or something run through an organization, there's going to be an inherent bias. So basically, do the best you can evaluating resources. And if you have a question, ask me. One thing I highly recommend not doing is going to like WebMD and then just running through the list of things. It leads to a really broad, poor presentation where you just go intro, how it's diagnosed, how it's treated, yada yada yada. You want to be more specific in a sense, and I'll give you guys some examples in class and whatnot. Anyway, an abstract. What's an abstract? An abstract is usually something, a brief or a more brief explanation of what's about to come. So I have a little more loose definition of an abstract. It can be basically a rough draft. But basically, the more you give me prior to the actual presentation, I can give you more feedback. So if you send something to me a week in advance and it's basically done, you're going to get a lot of good feedback. If you send it the day before at 10 p.m., I may not get to it at that point. 2 days before, I'm going to try to get as much as I can to you. But the idea is the earlier in advance, the more feedback you're going to get, and I think that's going to be really imperative if you want to be successful in this assignment. Anyway, how do you construct it? Basically, you have a lot of different ways of going about your presentation. There are some guidelines that I give here with part 4, but be creative. Don't worry about, does there have to be a certain form? It doesn't have to be A, B, C, D, but it should be in a logical manner. It should flow. But you do have a lot of different options. I'm going to have you guys consult the rubric so that your slides don't get so wordy. A lot of us like to put every single detail on the slide. Instead of putting every single detail, put a picture on there. And I'll explain how to do this too in class so that you guys can see how I kind of give presentations and whatnot. Anyway, I'll explain more on how that works. The presentation itself is then what you do, and usually that's between 5 to 7 minutes. Now, if you go over, or 4 to 6 minutes, if you go over, I'm not going to come after you. But once you get to 10 minutes, I'm probably going to be like, okay, it's time to start wrapping things up, because we have other presentations to give that day as well. just make sure that you have a rubric ready to go the day of. You share it with me prior to the actual presentations. You're not like logging in on a Chromebook and then saying, uh, logging in on a Chromebook and then basically trying to share it with me right before your presentation, and then have a backup, either a flash drive, put it in your cloud, put it up in the cloud, whatever. Um, there are some links to an actual presentation that I gave down here underneath part 5, and then there's also the syllabus. Follow along with that rubric when you're constructing it. That's what you're going to be graded on. That's how you're going to be graded. And then kind of feel free to be creative throughout that. All right. Well, I look forward to some of your questions.